Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben and I'm a photographer and videographer based in North Wales. Today we are comparing two lenses. Well, one lens and one magnifying glass, really. So in my hands I have the Fujifilm XF 35mm RWR f2 and the TCL-X100 Mark II for the Fujifilm X100 series. I've had each of these for a few months now. I've been using the TCL-X100 Mark II on the Fujifilm X100V, and I've been shooting the XF 35mm f2 on the XS10. So they're both very much relevant cameras, very up to date. They have identical sensors, and for the most part every aspect of the cameras are the same. So it should be a very good basis for comparing these two options. So a quick note on field of view to start with. Shooting with a 35mm lens, and this is a 35mm lens, on a APS-C camera, you're getting roughly the equivalent of a 50mm focal length on a full frame 35mm sensor. That being said, the XF is 35mm, the TCL X100 Mark II is a 33mm. So using our 1.5 magnification factor, the 33mm is actually truer to a 50mm equivalent. That gives us a 49.5mm. The 35mm equates to a 52.5mm. So technically the TCL X100 is closer to a 50mm focal length, equivalent focal length. Now I've taken a load of test shots for this video, as well as just using them day to day over the last few months, and especially with the side-by-side shots, it will become evident very quickly that there is a difference in field of view. So just bear that in mind for the rest of the video. Effectively, both of these lenses you can control the aperture through a ring on the lens. On the 35mm it is right there at the bottom. It is a pretty nice tactile ring, I have to say, and with the TCL teleconverter you're attaching it straight to the lens on the X100, and therefore you still have the manual aperture ring. Personally, this is actually how I change my aperture value, but I know a lot of people would just prefer to use a dial on the camera. So, onto some image quality testing. In terms of sharpness, it is a little bit tricky to truly tell which one is sharper because of the difference in focal length. That being said, for the majority of images that I've taken, not just in these tests, but from the last several months of use, I do believe that the TCL is still sharper using the X100V lens. Your mileage may vary if you're using an older X100V camera though. This is especially true wide open at f2, and very much true when you're shooting close-up images. As always, I've taken some plain brick wall shots for this test. You can immediately see there's a difference in focal length, and I believe the X100V with the TCL is still sharper at f2 than the XF is. Stopping down, obviously you're going to see some improvement. The narrower the aperture, the more stuff is just in focus, but still X100 wins that battle. Distortion is noticeable in images from both. In reality, this is a very quick and easy fix in Lightroom. Just click one button for the profile corrections and you're sorted. In day-to-day use, I have had no issue with this. Vignetting, I think, is more apparent on the XF 35mm, although you can clearly see it wide open on both lenses. But it looks like the TCL with the X100V, it does get rid of it far quicker as you start stopping down. My favourite thing to say, bokeh balls. In this case, the XF 35mm is far quicker to distort the shape of the balls in terms of going out from the centre. In general, the bokeh balls from the X100V with TCL are far smoother and rounder. As you start stopping down, you can start to see some onion ringing in both lenses, but the fringing is pretty well controlled on both. Generally speaking though, I'd say far more pleasant from the TCL. Sunstars are pretty much comparable really. Stopped down to f11, I took these two shots and they look pretty much the same. Fringing in terms of chromatic aberration, you will see some from each if you try. Generally speaking, it's not really been an issue from either of these for me. Just like in my 23mm comparison, I really had to try and create fringing to actually show any of these images. So really nothing to complain about, and again, very easy to fix in post. Flaring is very well controlled on both of these. One thing to bear in mind is that the TCL does not come with any sort of lens hood, and you do have quite a large bulbous front element. So if any light is hitting that, I imagine it could cause quite a lot of flaring. But it's never been much of an issue. Compare that to the XF 35mm f2. This is a very, very small front element, and in this case I do actually have a small lens hood. I didn't actually have this lens hood with the lens when I bought it. I did buy the lens second hand, and it was just the lens in a box. I think in one or two of these images that I've taken today, the comparison images, you can now and then see a little more haze almost from the low sun out of frame on the TCL, possibly because I was using a hood on the XF 35. But again, day-to-day use, I've really struggled to find any. In terms of focusing, both very quick, very snappy. The TCL on the X100V is very fast, considering it is not part of the original lens mechanism, and I have to say it is still quicker. I feel it's snappier still than the XF 35mm on still a very current camera, the XS10. Talking of focus, minimum focus distance on the XF 35mm, on their spec sheet they say 35cm minimum focus distance. In this example I managed to get 31cm, so there is a little bit of room to play. With the TCL on the X100V, I don't think they actually have it specified anywhere, but I was able to get 22cm away from the subject, which sounds pretty good. But then consider when you take the TCL off and you're using the original X100V's lens, you can get 14cm away, and despite the wider focal length, you are still getting much closer to your subject, and therefore far more detailed. And then if you're thinking of putting filters on these lenses, the XF 35mm has a 43mm filter thread, although depending whether you're using a lens hood or not, you might not be able to get a filter on there, because that is how the lens hood attaches. On the TCL X100 Mark II, you have a 67mm filter thread, so if I was looking to do any long exposure work, anything like that, I'm in luck, because the majority of my Sony lenses are a 67mm filter thread, so I can just slap on any of my filters. I don't have to buy any more. But saying that, I'm probably just more likely to use the built-in 4-stop ND in the X100V. But there we go. But again, with that larger focal length, I can then attach something like my Firecrest 100mm filter system to this 67mm filter thread without having to adapt anything. I already have that filter size ready to go for my 100mm system, so if I wanted a polarizer, any NDs, any graduated filters, a nightscape filter, I can slap it straight on. Whereas with the XF 35mm, you could do it, I'm sure, but that's quite a step from a 43mm filter thread, but you can do it. Okay, so I don't really have much more to say. In many cases they are quite comparable, but I think the X100V with the TCL does just pip the XF 35mm with the XS10, such as in sharpness and focus, both focusing and minimum focus distance. Don't get me wrong, I have loved using the XF 35mm with the XS10. It's a great combo. I absolutely love these little f2 primes that they made. But for me, in my previous video, I've already decided I much prefer the X100V's 23mm lens compared to the XF 23mm f2. I'll link to that up here. And personally, I just much prefer the X100 as a daily shooter camera, which is really all I use the Fujifilm stuff for. So for me, just having that in my bag at all times, and then the TCL in its little pouch, I can easily slap it on whenever I want a slightly tighter focal length, rather than carrying the X100V as well as the XS10 with additional lenses. Yeah, I'm sticking with the TCL. Now, for anyone who doesn't own any of these things, it may be a different story. So if you are completely new to the Fujifilm system, maybe you don't own anything from Fujifilm yet, I would probably suggest going with the XS10, and then you're able to switch out whatever lenses you want. If it's coming down to price, then you would be looking at spending more money for the X100V. Retail, this is still around £1,300 here in the UK, plus the TCL, you're looking around another £250. So that is about £1,500–1,600 worth of camera gear. Whereas with the Fujifilm XS10, you can pick this up for £900 brand new, and you can get the XF 35mm used, as I did, for around £250 to £300. So that is a lot cheaper in itself, and you can then get other lenses as well. In fact, if you're shopping around, you could probably get a used Fujifilm XS10 for about £700 or £800, and you may well be able to find the XF 35mm f1.4 and still be around the same price as the X100V package. So yeah, it's a matter of personal choice, I think. For me, the X100V wins. I've had it for nearly a year now, so I'll have to do a review at some point, I suppose. It was my first foray into the Fujifilm system, and I've loved every second of it. I absolutely adore walking anywhere with this camera, plus a lot of people think it's a Leica. The XS10 is a superb camera. I really like the addition of image stabilization and the flippy screen and a lot of other stuff about it compared to the X100V, but for what I actually do, more often than not, the X100V is the better choice for me. And because of that, tomorrow I am selling the XS10, the 35mm f2, as well as my 16mm f2.8 and the 16-80 f4, which came with the camera, because I don't use it. Any time that I go for a walk, I pick up this camera. It's just, I'm just drawn to it immediately every single time, and I love the images that I get with it. I love shooting a 35mm focal length and now and then a 50mm focal length, so for me it suits my needs perfectly. Plus, now that I'm shooting more and more weddings, especially wedding videos, I am putting the money from this Fujifilm gear to very good use, and I'm buying myself a third Sony camera. But I suppose you'll have to subscribe to see what I get. So yeah, it's been fun. I've loved using the XS10 and the tiny primes. But yeah, another time maybe. So there we go, that's it. Hope you found that useful, if not entertaining. A lot of people really seem to like the previous 23mm lens comparison, and I did have a lot of people asking about a 35mm comparison, so there you go. If you want to see more videos like this, please do hit subscribe down below and give it a like as well. If you've got any queries or comments or anything like that, please do drop a comment down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. As always, thank you very much for watching. Otherwise, be good, stay safe, get shooting, and I'll see you in the next video.